iZOTOPE VEA is an easy-to-use plugin that really combines thousands of dollars of the top iZotope plugins. We're talking about Nectar, we're talking about Ozone, and we're talking about RX, all combined into one single easy-to-use plugin with AI to really help your vocal for your content creation or your voiceovers or your podcast to sound their best without having to have a bunch of knowledge and background in audio production. So VEA is really kind of laid out the way I have my own vocal chain laid out for content production. I'll show you that in just a second. But let me just show you what VEA does real quick off the top, and then we'll delve into it a little bit more. So here's just a raw track here, right? Hello, and welcome to my brand new podcast. I want you to take note of the background noise in this. Everyone told me nobody wants to listen to a podcast about cats where you actually interview cats, but All right, so now we'll turn it on. Hello, and welcome to my brand new podcast. Everyone told me nobody wants to listen to a podcast about cats where you actually interview cats, but I told them nay, 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 nay. So once again, friends. So there we go, folks. It instantly took that a track that didn't sound horrible, has some background noise. Now, it doesn't sound horrible because I used a $500 microphone to record it. The Rode Broadcaster, one of my favorite broadcasting microphones. It's a condenser mic. It's front fire, just like the SM7B is front fire, but it's a condenser. But if you don't have a mic even that good, it doesn't matter. VEA is still going to make you sound amazing with just these three knobs. Whenever you first open VEA, we should probably go through this here. Let's just actually remove VEA from this here. Now, whenever you first open it up, let me pop it on here for you. I could have just reset it, but we'll do it like this. When you first put it on the track, it's just going to look like this. Okay, so you have to play back your audio before you get any control. So let's play back our audio from anywhere, doesn't matter. Nobody wants to listen to a podcast about cats where you actually interview cats, but I told them nay, 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 nay. So once again, friends, that's all there is to it. So it analyzes the audio using AI and machine learning and compares it to a bunch of different, spoken word podcast or whatever, and then sort of matches up your sound to that. So it's removing things like, again, background noise and weird vocal noises. It's doing shape, which is, think of it like your EQ, except you don't have to actually know what you're doing. And then boost, which you can think of as kind of your dynamics section or your compressor section, but you don't have to set the threshold. You're not setting ratios. You're not setting any of that stuff. It's all set for you to sound your best. So here's what it's set for me. Again, let's bypass this. Everyone told me nobody wants to listen to a podcast about cats where you actually interview cats. Turn it back on. Everyone told me nobody wants to listen to a podcast about cats where you actually interview cats. But so it sounds better. There's not quite as much low end on it because of our shape here, which is great. We can always also adjust this stuff and apply the curve more, or apply more compression, apply more background noise removal here. So let's mess around with that a little bit. But I told them nay, 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 nay. So once again, friends, thank you. So I wouldn't go that far, mainly because today, if we're talking about podcast or spoken word stuff, people really aren't into a ton of compression. Whereas say 10 years ago, people loved compression. It was all over, look at satellite radio, early 2000s radio. It was all about tons of compression, but today people don't like a lot of compression. So I'd back off on the compression section. What people like today is more of a natural overall sound. So I think something like this would probably make it sound professional without really changing the overall tone of it, making it sound unnatural. Thank you for coming to Catopia, and I would like to introduce you to our first guest, Mr. Bigglesworth. It's a pleasure to meet you too, Mr. Bigglesworth. Well, let's bypass this again. Well, let's get down to brass tacks. Dry food versus wet food. What is your preference, Mr. Bigglesworth? All right, let's listen to this stupid section again. Well, let's get down to brass tacks. Dry food versus wet food. What is your preference, Mr. Bigglesworth? So, as dumb as that sounds, it does sound much, much better. So, while VEA isn't going to make the content of your podcast any better, it's at least going to make it sound really, really good. You can also change the shape, what you're trying to match this to, your curve. There's some presets in here, like Beautiful Planet, Public Radio, right? So maybe we'll do like Public Radio. Let's try that. Nobody wants to really push the shape. To listen to a podcast about cats where you actually interview cats, but I told them nay, 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 nay. So that does sound like Public Radio. Beautiful Planet here. Let's go back here. Someone told me nobody wants to listen to a podcast about cats where you actually interview cats, but I told them nay, 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 nay. That's a pretty good one. And True Crime is also a pretty good one too. It has a very natural sound to it where it sort of rolls off the low end. Again, people today don't like a ton of low end. They don't like a lot of proximity effect. And also, by the way, I'm using VEA for this voiceover here as well with the SM7B. I'm not going to use my usual chain, which I usually use, which I'll show you just in just a second here. Let me show you a couple things first. I want to show you audio lens here, then I'll go to my general chain. So here's the True Crime. Told me nobody wants to listen to a podcast about cats where you actually interview cats, but I told them nay, 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 nay. So once again, friends, thank you for coming to Catopia. And I would like to... All right, so that True Crime one is, like I said, pretty good. But we can go back to the default as well. Here's that. Nobody wants to listen to a podcast about... Now, your other option is to use Audio Lens. So if you have Audio Lens, which for some reason I closed it. So if you have Audio Lens, which is a program, it's not a plugin, it's a program that's going to run on your computer. And it's going to analyze, not capture, just analyze anything playing on your computer. So let's just say you love the popular Ro Jogan podcast. I can't be sued for copyright. So let's say somebody analyzed the Ro Jogan podcast and they want to reproduce that sound for their own podcast, or you want to analyze my videos or whatever. All you have to do is open up Audio Lens, hit capture, playback, whatever it is, and it captures the curve. Again, it doesn't capture audio. It's totally legal. There's no law against capturing somebody's curve, okay? But once you have that captured in Audio Lens, you'll see it down here as, in this case, Ro Jogan. So now we have the sound of Ro Jogan that we can apply to our own tracks. Let's check that one out. I'll start with it way down here. Someone told me nobody wants to listen to a podcast about cats where you actually interview cats, but I told them nay, 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 nay. So once again, friends, thank you for coming to Catopia. And I would like to introduce you to our first. I mean, that nailed it. It absolutely nailed it. It's the Ro Jogan podcast. Wink. Has a very natural sound. It's very SMB driven. It has sort of the warm sound of the SM7B, but there's also a roll off on the low end. It's not overly compressed. It's almost the sound that everybody shoots for, even though it's not technically the best sound possible, but whatever. We'll leave that alone for a little bit. But if, your favorite producer, podcast producer, content creator on whatever website, you just play back those videos with Audio Lens, capture the curve. It'll be right here available for you in VEA. And again, you're not spending thousands upon thousands of dollars. Not that it's not worth it, mind you, but you're not spending thousands of dollars for the full versions of RX, Ozone, and Nectar. Again, I think it's worth it because I do a ton of stuff with audio, but if you don't do a ton of stuff with audio, it may not be worth it for you. Let me show you this real quick, and then I'll show you my signal chain, and then we'll listen to the entire stupid podcast. This is just background noise. Okay, so I do have this turned up a bit. I'm going to turn up a bit more just so you can hear it. Sometimes people can't hear it. Let me bypass this, of course. So that's what's going on in the background. Now, obviously not that loud, okay? But once we pop on VEA, our clean section here, we can clean that up. Now, we don't have to remove it completely. So we'll check out the clean real quick. Oh, we can also change the color of the interface if you want to do that to a bright. So that's with it turned all the way down. Okay, and now we'll turn it up. So at this point, we're basically pulled it all the way out. It's a tiny bit. If you're wearing headphones, you can still hear it, but barely, right? It's going to be so buried in any speaking that no one's really going to hear it, right? So I'll pull it down a bit. I don't mind a little tiny bit. There we go. So that's much better than, let's bypass it here. Ready? Right, much better there. Here is my signal chain, plug-in chain that I usually use. Let me just throw this over here. I call it Rode Broadcaster, but I use it for everything. So I have RX10 mouth declick, I have RX10 voice denoise, and I have Nectar 4. This is what I use on basically every YouTube video or voiceover or whatever that I do. Just saying the advanced version of RX10, what's that, like 1,000? You can get it for around $5.99 or so, I guess, if it's on sale. And then Nectar, which is like $2.50. I love Nectar. I've used Nectar forever. Nectar 1, Nectar 2, 3, and 4. I use it for everything. I love it. It's so amazing. But again, if all you're doing is some podcasts, all you're doing is a little bit of content creation, maybe you don't need to spend $8.99, $9.99 on the on sale version of the everything bundle or something, right? But yeah, this is generally what I do. So VEA combines all of this stuff into a simple to use plugin here. Let me grab VEA again. All right, so instead of coming into Nectar and trying to figure out my EQ and listening to it, you actually interview cats. But I told them, nay. Trying to figure out where I should put everything. If you don't have a background in audio, then you're probably not going to know what settings to choose, right? Setting up a little bit of a gate here with a close on it there, some compression, a de-esser, another compressor. Like to set all this up, you have to kind of understand a little bit about what you're doing. Same thing for, your mouth declicks here and your voice, your denoise for the background noise of what this is for here. But again, I love these plugins. I think they're totally worth the full price, the full cost. About $1,000 you can get the everything bundle generally when it's on sale. But if you don't need all that stuff for music production and a ton of audio work, VEA is going to combine all of those controls. Well, not all of them, like the mouth declick, but as far as background noise, shape, dynamics, things like that, it's going to give you all of that in a single, simple to use plugin that again sells for like $30. Okay. Let's reset this. Okay. So if you ever need to reset something, just click the reset and we can use our AI again to analyze it. Hello and welcome to my brand new podcast. Everyone told me nobody wants to listen to a podcast about cats where you actually interview cats, but I told pull my shape down a bit, so the EQ down a bit, pull the boost down a bit, pull the clean up a bit, and if I want, I can make it sound like Joe Rogan or whoever I want. Joe Rogan. Oh, I had a cough there, sorry. You actually interview cats, but I told them nay. So, once again, friends, thank you for coming to Catopia, and I would like to introduce you to our first guest. Bypass. Mr. Bigglesworth. It's a pleasure to meet you too, Mr. Bigglesworth. Well, let's get down to brass tacks. Dry food versus wet food. What is your preference, Mr. Bigglesworth? You see, I personally love to eat the wet food. I'll grab one of those little containers at night. I'll put on my furry costume and my little ears, and I'll just sit in the corner and I'll eat the wet cat food. And this is not going well. Turn it off. So, like I said, folks, VEA can't change the content of your horrible idea for a podcast, but it can make you sound amazing, and that's why you should pick it up, folks. Because how you sound matters more than the content of what you put out there. Let that be the lesson of today's video. It can make it easy for you if you don't want to spend years and years learning audio production. You can sound amazing with just this plugin. So again, if you want to pick it up for yourself, it's a good plugin. You should at least check it out, especially for only $30. I suggest you check it out. You can also get a 10-day free trial, so you don't have to spend any money at all to try it out for yourself. Okay. Once again, Links for this for VEA will be in the description below. Thank you for coming to Catopia, and I would like to introduce you to our first guest, Mr. Bigglesworth.